Everyone knows your business before they know your business. They know who you're dating. They know who you walked at a crew bar with last night, and they know that they were not in their room that night. What is going on, you guys? It is Showboy KNOTZ, and we are finally back on YouTube with another video. Some of you guys may be wondering, hey KNOTZ, what happened? Where'd you go? Where's all the content? Where'd the videos go? Well, for those of you following me on social media, you know that I went away for 4 months to go work as a DJ on a cruise ship. It was an exciting time. It was a wild ride, but I am here to make a video to tell you guys about the top 5 things I learned while working on a cruise ship. These are in no specific order. They're just random things that I've been thinking about. I've been wanting to make cruise ship videos for a while. I wanted to do them while I was on the ship, but I was way too busy. I could not make it happen. So now that I'm back home, I've been home for a couple of months now, I've decided to make this video, let you guys know about, some of the things that I learned, what I was kind of dealing with. And then if you guys like this, maybe we'll do some more videos in the future. But until then, let's just jump right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about today is the ship food. Okay, so everyone's always like, how is the food on the ship? Now, it's going to vary depending on what ship you're on. There's a lot of different factors. It also depends on your ranking on the ship. For example, we have a crew mess area, which is where the typical crew can all go and they can all eat. But there are certain people that have certain privileges that allow them to go eat in certain areas, like one of the restaurants on board or even the guest buffet. Now, I was fortunate enough to be able to go eat on the guest buffet, and I did most of my meals there. It was very nice because I was able to go there in times when the crew mess wasn't open and it fit my schedule a little bit better. Plus, the food was more consistent there, so I really liked that. But it's not to say that I didn't necessarily mind the crew mess food. It was a little bit hit or miss sometimes. Sometimes they are just out of like the basic thing you want, like, for example, I like Italian dressing on my salad, and some days they only have ranch at Thousand Island, and then randomly they'll have 1,000. Like it's so random, like as far as what they always have in stock in the crew area, at least on my ship. So that inconsistency kind of frustrated me, and sometimes it was like not necessarily hard to find something to eat, but sometimes some of the food in the crew mess was just maybe not as fresh or just not necessarily what you would come to hope it would be. Like even in the guest buffet area, I think one of my things that I always laughed about was they had like a Mexican rice, but my mom's side being Mexican, if they ate that rice, they would have absolutely lost it. Because no, absolutely no, too dry. Anyways, I'm picking at straws, but point of the story is your ship food and your ship life is going to vary depending on your rank, what your dietary restrictions are, and just kind of sometimes even what time of day you go and eat. For example, on my ship, we had a late dinner that happened about like 10:30 at night. Well, I was always DJing at that point, so I never got to go to the late dinner, but they typically took food that was left over from the other restaurants that had closed, and then they would put them in the late dinner for the crew mess. So on average, the crew mess food for the late dinner typically tended to be some of the better food because it was some of the better food from some of the other restaurants that they just needed to use that night. That's not to mention all of the snacks that crew are constantly going to be buying. Like, I know for me, I always had jerky in my cabin. There was always some kind of chocolate. There was always some kind of chips, Pringles on deck, and protein bars from when you wake up and you got to throw a protein bar in your mouth before you have a drill that morning. Overall, food on the ship wasn't too bad. I mean, we were thankfully enough to be in port every single day, so a lot of my money did go to buying food out in the port. Like, I liked this one Mexican restaurant that we always went to, and it reminded me of home, so I almost always went to that Mexican restaurant every Thursday we were in port. But, at the end of the day, it's just food. You'll be fine. You'll find something. You'll live. Don't worry about it. The second thing I want to talk about is the hours that you work. Now, once again, the hours you're going to work are going to vary depending on what department you're in. If you're someone that is working as like a bartender, for example, you can expect to work a long time for the majority of the day. Now, you might make more money than certain other people. Like, for example, I was working in a crew staff / DJ job, so I worked less hours than most positions on board, but they may have made a little bit more money just because of the amount of hours they worked. Now, me personally, I would rather make some money, but also have some downtime, so I was cool with that balance, even though the downtime was kind of sporadic. You couldn't always get off the ship for a chunk of time because you had like things happening in between. So that will also, like I said, depend on your department. Me, most of my work was at night because I was the DJ. So most of my stuff was at night. I usually would have like an afternoon like DJ set for a few hours, and I'd have a chunk of time off, and then I'd have my night set. So it varied. I know some people like that were bartenders or something would maybe do some stuff during the day, and then they would have maybe their chunk of time off at night. If they had a chunk of time off, it's always going to vary based on your department. And also your staffing needs. If the ship is pretty staffed, they might be able to be a little bit more lenient with like how much they need you. But I know that on our ship, we needed people like in certain areas where they were moving people that were bar waiters to doing like hand sanitizing in an area because they just needed people to do that. Or maybe they had too many people. It's going to vary on your ship. It's going to vary on your department and just ultimately the needs of the ship as well. You can expect to work every day though. If you're going to go work on a cruise ship expecting to have like all this time off and go on this big vacation and all that, you might want to think about something else because it's not going to be that. I mean, I worked every single day. Everyone works every single day. Unless you're like a principal vocalist or like maybe in the band or like a performing cast if they have one on your ship, they might only work a few days. I know like our comedians and our lead principal vocalists worked like 2 days out of the week and did 2 shows on those days, but that's just because that was how their contract was. And it's a little bit different because they're contracted through an agency and not the ship. Like I said, it's going to vary depending on your position, but if you're going there just to lollygag around and expect to just run around in port all day, lower your expectations a little bit. Not saying that you're not going to have time off, because pretty much everyone I know found ways to get off the ship and have time. It may not be at the same time as your friends, but you know, finding time off and even time off to enjoy yourself, it's going to be worth it. And it's all about what you make about it. So the hours will vary, but it depends on how you use them. The third ship I want to talk about is your general health and your mental health when you're working on a cruise ship. A lot of people don't really think about how your mental health and stuff like that is going to play a role in a job like this. But when you are in a like tight, confined area with all the same people for the most part all the time, you're working all the time, it is very important to find ways to balance your mental health as well as your own general health. I know that like a lot of people I know were struggling to not spend too much money on alcohol, or like they would drink too much. I drink a lot too, but you know, I still managed my stuff. I still try to find time to go to the gym, try to find ways to like take care of myself as well and not just be completely exhausted and just struggling because I'm drinking too much on the ship. It's also tricky too whenever you start getting into maybe you don't like a certain person or someone in your job you don't like or stuff like that. You know, you have to be an adult about it. You have to manage and communicate and find the best ways to handle every situation. But that can take a toll on your mental health as a whole. I know for me, like there was someone on the ship, I didn't like them. We only had one crew bar on our ship, and every time I went to the crew bar, I had to see that person because that was the only place that we could all go and hang out for the most part on the ship, and they were always there. But you got to see them because it's the only place you can go with your friends and hang out. That's a social area on the ship. You got to find ways to deal with it. And sometimes I didn't deal with it the best. Sometimes my mental health was absolute ass. If you know some of the people that worked on the ship with me, you know that there were down times where I was absolutely like, what am I doing here? What is going on? When you find ways to deal with them, you find ways to kind of pull yourself out of what you perceive the situation to be like and kind of take it for what it is and understand that you're only there for a certain amount of time. You're doing a job. And at the end of the day, if you focus on yourself and find ways to make sure your mental health is good, as well as taking care of your physical health, you'll be doing good. You'll be fine. Bring a book, bring some video games. There were so many nights wherever I just went back to my room and I had a 6-pack of beer and I just watched some RuPaul's Drag Race or something. And that was my mental health. That was my way of finding ways to take time for myself. Or even going into port, your favorite restaurant, doing something like that. You got to find ways to focus on that, because if you don't keep your mental and or physical health up to peak, like it will go down and you will start to struggle, but it's fine. There's ways to make it work. I have faith in you. And I have faith that anybody that still wants to go work on a cruise ship, just keep that in mind when you're going in it and just stay on top of it. Be self-aware of what you're going through, what your body needs, what your mind needs, and you'll be good. Fourth thing I want to talk about in this video are relationships on a cruise ship. I'm not just talking about friendships. I'm also talking about dating relationships. You know, both of them are very, you know, kind of intertwined, especially on a cruise ship, because everybody knows everybody. Everyone's sleeping with everybody. It is a little crazy. Not necessarily say this is the same on every cruise ship, but from what I've gathered, you know, people talk and everyone knows your business before they know your business. They know who you're dating. They know who you walked at a crew bar with last night, and they know that they were not in their room that night. So it gets around. So be careful if you don't want everyone knowing your business, because odds are people are gonna know your business. That's not saying that what they know is gonna be necessarily the truth, because rumors be getting around, and that can cause a struggle in your relationships and even building friendships with certain people. But manage it. Expect your relationships to hopefully be more fluid and not too forced, because when you start forcing like, oh, I want to be friends with so-and-so because this, and I want to be friends with them because everyone's talking to them, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. Like I said, with the mental health, everything, take care of yourself, build genuine relationships, but also keep in mind that people aren't always there for a while. I know with me, one of the things I struggled with is that I worked the night shifts because of the DJing thing. And so the crew bar and all the crew activities, they would be doing their activities while I had to work. So I didn't get to do a lot of the crew enrichment activities, which sucked whenever it was coming to like time for me to try and make certain other friends. But it is what it is. I still found time to go hang out with my friends and do stuff whenever I could. It's about squeezing those times in, building those relationships, even if it's just being able to have a random quick lunch and crew mess with someone that is a cook in another department, but y'all never get to see each other or hang out. But finding time to like make those relationships count, really, they do matter in the long run. Even whenever I got back home from working on the cruise ship, I ran into a friend at the gym that was on the ship. I had a friend from Louisiana that was in Houston randomly. They came and hung out, and those relationships that you build on the ship, whether they be actual like loving relationships or they actually are like friend relationships, they will and can last a lifetime, especially if they're just people that you really connected with and vibed in a genuine environment. When I say genuine environment, the cruise ship can be full of a lot of crap and a lot of fakeness, but you know, you will find those people. And if you're genuine and true to yourself and you attract the right people, then you'll build some great relationships while you're on the ship. The last thing I want to talk about, the fifth and final thing, is our night culture and alcohol culture on the ship. Now, once again, this is going to vary by cruise ship. For example, on my cruise ship, our crew bar, we only had beer and wine. There was no hard liquor because we had a pretty small alcohol tolerance that we were even allowed to have in our system at any given time. That's not to say people didn't get crazy. That's not to say people didn't get off in port and get too lit and still manage to make their way back on the ship and go about their day. It happens. You know, people get away with certain things, but you have got to be smart about yourself. I don't want to talk about how many people I have met that literally were gone in like a week or not even a week because we became friends, acquaintances, and then they got too lit one night at their Thursday night Portofino's trip, for those of you that know, you know, and then they get fired that night before they even like, it's wild. It's crazy. You have to be mindful and you have to be smart about stuff. Take care of yourself. The alcohol and night culture, all that, it's going to vary by your ship once again. Most of this stuff will. There's a lot of similarities across the board, but like it will depend on the culture of your ship as a whole. Our crew bar was popping for the most part. Like most nights, you know, that's where most people went. And whenever there's nothing else to do, everyone goes to crew bar. They have a good time. Karaoke, live bands, you know, whatever we had going on. It got wild and people got wild. But don't lose your job over something stupid. You know, monitor yourself, monitor your friends, but at the end of the day, just know that like you need to be able to look out for yourself. You got to look out for yourself. You got to get your ass back to your cabin. I'm sorry, friend. I love you. I've tried to help you out, but like at the end of the day, it is your job. It is your trip home that you're going to have to buy whenever you lose your job because you rolled up with someone that was way too drunk. You both got breathalyzed and now you lost your job. Keep some Pedialyte in your room, whatever you got to do. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Don't get too lit, but you know, have fun. But also, you got to look out for yourself, especially when you're with a group of people that are out getting too lit in port. Most of the time, I would go out or meet friends in the port when I got done DJing, and they would be all at the club and they'd be all lit, and I would go back to the ship by myself or only with one other person because you don't want to roll up with a group of people walking up the gangway to the ship, and then security's like, hold up, hold the phone. It's a wild time. It can be wild. It can be a great time. And most of the time, you know, hanging out with your friends and stuff is a great time. But that nightlife, that alcohol culture on the ship, I know people, even myself, that were drinking way more on the ship than they do back at home. Just be aware of it. Make sure you take care of yourself. Ship life can be fun. It can be stressful. It usually is stressful, but you know, it's all about how you maintain it, how you go about it, and everyone's experience is going to be different. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I just wanted to tell you guys about a couple of things I learned by working on a cruise ship. If there's more that you guys want to hear, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought, and maybe I'll make some more videos about my time working on the ship. I hope to get more content out for you guys, not just this, but some other stuff, gaming, music, all that stuff. I'm glad to be back on YouTube. I hope you guys are doing great. Thank you to everybody that is subscribed, liked this video, and left a comment. And once again, guys, I'm sure I'll see you around. Until next time, KNOTZ out.